shake out your money-making truth. You're listening to Soul Wisdom Abundance with Jennifer Bloom, creating wealth from spiritual health on transformationtalkradio.com. Have you ever wondered why some people work really hard for their money while others live lives of joy and abundance with seemingly little effort? You are about to learn powerful, tangible steps to shifting your mindset and connecting to your flow of money and abundance. Jennifer teaches you to connect to who you are at a soul level and how to use that connection to create a personal and specific relationship with money. Learn how money is a powerful tool to achieve your desires and your desires to then serve the world. So shake out your money-making truth right now. Soul Wisdom Abundance with Jennifer Bloom.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jennifer Bloom, host of Soul Wisdom Abundance, Create Wealth Through Spiritual Health. And as always, I am thrilled to be sharing space with everyone today. I anticipate these days with great desire. For those of you who are new, welcome. Glad you found your way to the space. And for those of you who are here listening in again, I'm really delighted that what I'm sharing is something that is speaking to you. And you know, if you ever have a topic you'd like me to cover, reach out to me. You can come to my website, jenniferbloom.com, and let me know what you want to hear about. All right, would love to know more about that. So this podcast is all about helping us create a deeper awareness and a deeper consciousness around money. Because when we don't have a deeper awareness and deeper consciousness around money, we end up creating out of our old patterns, our old habits, our old memories, and there tends to be a lot of pain and suffering. When we have more consciousness about what money really is, about who we really are, and about how we actually create money on this planet, there tends to be a lot more ease and joy. And the easiest way really to do that is to start to become aware of the fact that you're in relationship with money. You have a soul money relationship that is something that you can lean on for creation. And again, if you want to know more about that, come back to my website, jenniferbloom.com, and you'll notice at the top there's a quiz you can take that's going to tell you all about what kind of relationship you're in with money and what could use a little bit more connection. All right. So just a couple of ways to really get yourself started here. All right. So we've got some really interesting stuff to talk about today. The first thing I want to talk about is the fact that one of the really big concepts here with money, and actually with creating anything, is that our self-worth is a driving factor of what we're creating, but not in the way that we've been taught. We've been taught that we have to earn, we have to do the right thing, we have to be the great good girl, we got to be a good boy, whatever it is. And then once we have the money in the bank and the title and the marriage and the blah, 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 then we're worthy. That's not how it works. The universe is always delivering us goodness. It's always trying to give us what we're asking for. When we say no to ourselves and we say no at that level of self-worth, it's like we're putting up this great big stop sign of the universe saying, not interested. No, don't flow me that goodness. And it gets us in trouble in a lot of ways. And so this is a really big concept, and we're going to spend more time in the second half of the show talking a little bit about that. But it really weaves into what we're going to talk about with my guest today, because sometimes we have things that happen in our lives that knock us totally flat. Right? We go through a divorce, we go through a business breaking down, we go through it, right? Any of those really big things. And for somebody to say to you, your self-worth is what's giving you what you want, and you're looking at all this crap that you've just been through, you're like, no, that help. No, how am I ever going to get back? How am I ever going to get back to that point of who I want to be and even bigger and better than who I was, right? It's a really big mess. And so I am delighted to have Ingela with us here today, because she talks all about self-care, how to get reignited once you've been through something that knocks you flat. And she has a lot of wisdom. So Ingela, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jennifer. I am so happy to be here.
So you are a mindset coach, happiness influencer, right? I love that. I love that. And really, really, and I would say empowerment, right? There's a lot of empowerment in the work that you do. And I know that, well, I met you because I'm one of the speakers in your upcoming summit that we're going to have, we'll talk about here in a little bit, but which is all about reigniting, right? Woman Reignited. And so there was so much fun there. I wanted you to be here on my show. So I know that you didn't come to this just through book learning. You have had your own experience. So can you share a little bit about what happened in your life that's created such a passion and interest for you here?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, thank you again. I'm so honored to be here and to be asked to be on your show. And from my past, I thought I was happily married for 24 plus years. We had a daughter together. Then all of a sudden, boom, divorce happened and infidelity. And I was just like shocked, like, how could this happen? And then you just, like you said, you just lay flat on your back and you're going, how did I get here? So from there, I started going into self-growth. I found Tony Robbins. I found a new man in my life, and Tony Robbins. And I went through a lot of years of just working on me and actually finding me again, because what I found was that I had completely lost who I was. Like, I became somebody who I thought I needed to be and should be, and compromise and be whatever my ex wasn't. I had to step in and be. I basically also stepped into my masculine energy. So when I came out of that after years, I'm still doing growth. Growth is an everyday process. Then little by little, you start loving yourself again. Now I feel like empowered. I feel sexy. I felt ugly before. I was just not confident, and I could not do anything. I couldn't, I was afraid of things. There was so many things in my head. And now, again, I just feel so comfortable, empowered, beautiful, and so much confidence. And it's not a cocky confidence. It's more like it's in my heart. And I truly stepped into I'm going to say the last year, I stepped into that feminine energy. And when we live there, you radiate, you light up. And when you light up, you inspire other people, and they light up. And that's why I call myself a happiness influencer.
Love it.
I just came up with that. I just thought that. I was like, yeah, that sounds good. And that is, so that I'm so deeply passionate about that, because I see women putting themselves in a box. And I was in that box. It's a box of limitations. And it's like, for me, I would sit at a stoplight, and there would be somebody next to me in the car, and they would just be like singing and dancing and woohoo. And I'd be like, oh, they're crazy, but I want to be them. And now I am.
So I want to pick up on a thread of what you've been speaking about. So let's talk a little bit about the difference between being in your masculine and being in your feminine. Tell me more what you mean by that.
So from my experience, was when I stepped into my masculine energy, I became very controlling in my marriage, and I own that. I stepped into taking the role of, really mothering too, really that control. Not always thinking with my head. Not stepping into my heart as much. The feminine, and for me, that's what masculine is for me, right? And then the feminine is more so when you are soft, you are giving, you are receiving, you just embody this fullness of femininity. Now we are both. We have masculine and feminine energy in us. Another example would be in the workplace. Women who are just high on the scale, they're the boss lady. They have to step into that. Oh, I'm the woman. Hear me roar, but in a way of perceiving themselves in that masculine energy. So they stop taking care of themselves. So, and they, they don't put themselves on a pedestal, but they have to be seen. I think it's also a feeling that they need to be respected. So they have to, put yourself there. But then when we step into that femininity, it's just another way of just receiving and just being more grounded and just embodying that whole femininity. For me, it's hard to put into words.
I know it is. It's right. You can feel it, right? When you're there, because I would really, I recognize that that controlling nature. It's been an issue in my relationships as well, because I tend to be, in soul language terms, I'm a hunter-huntress. I get things done, right? But when I overstep and I try to get things done for somebody else, no bueno, right? It's just, it's no good. And there's that, right. It's really it's more of an unconscious masculine, I think, because we need that masculine, right? We need to be able to do things, get things done, right? You have this beautiful summit that you wouldn't be able to have if you weren't able to get, if you were sort of always in the soft space, right? And then that feminine, but when we, the other piece I want to say about that is I think that we tend to think that's who we need to be to get things done, right? We think we're makers and doers, and that's the only way to get respect, to have sort of this hard shell and to just our way through life. But that closes off so much, right? It closes off that other side, that the other balancing energy, that feminine energy, that energy that's more open and willing to receive and be nurtured, instead of always having to do one to do it.
Yeah, and it's all about, which I recently, this was a hard one for me, to become vulnerable. And I put vulnerability, to me, that was being weak. And then I learned, actually earlier this year, we did a program and a leadership program, and I learned what actually vulnerability was. And so it's more so also feeling, right? But it's not being weak. It's actually, you are strong. So it's just that shift. And it's not overnight. Again, it takes something drastic sometimes, and it's all about that mind. It's a shifting the mind and learning to do that. And it's dramatic. The change you see in people too, even when you're stepping into masculine to feminine, your face softens. You just, I don't know, there's energy that comes out of you that you just, like I said before, you radiate, and you're comfortable. You're truly comfortable in your own skin.
Yeah, the armor's off, right? Right. And I think there's a real degree, well, this goes hand in hand with vulnerability. There's a real sense of trust.
Yes.
I can be here. I can be who I am. I can be open. I can open my heart up to you. I can open up who I am to you, because I want to say the word strong, but I'm confident. Again, not the cocky confident. I just, into my bones, I know who I am. And so I can present that to the world in that does feel vulnerable a lot of times, because that's not, again, how we're really taught how to do it. And there's that sense of safety and trust.
Yeah, and it's also about being humble. And I know you said like being strong. I was brought up to be a strong woman, can take care of herself, So I was always like, I can do everything by myself. Even now, I'm let the guy do that. I can do that. But you know what? Let him do it. Like, just because that's what they want to do for you. So just let the guys be guys and let us receive. Receiving is hard. That's like kind of like a step back and go. But that's embodying that energy.
So what makes receiving hard? What makes that hard for you?
Like
or just as far as a concept, like why would you describe that as hard? Not
because I'm just used to doing everything by myself.
Yeah, right.
If it needs to get done, if it's going to get done, I need to do it.
Mm-hmm.
If it's going to get done the way I want to have done.
There we go. There it is.
There it is. I want it. I get to do it, you know? So that is a shift.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a huge shift.
It absolutely is a monster shift. And I think that, again, it comes back to that space of trust.
Yes.
And the way I define it is, I think about us as humans, that we're wired to be receivers. We're wired to be receivers from divinity. Okay, that's great as a concept, but let's step into a relationship. All right. We're running a household together, or we're creating something together. Okay, the divine is just gonna like pop in and do my dishes for me. No, I got to figure out with my partner how we're gonna do that. Yeah,
that would be great.
Right. But if we get this overall concept that I'm a receiver, and it's okay to, right, it's okay to ask. Yes. And it's okay to know. It's okay that it isn't necessarily being dependent on somebody, but allowing ourselves to be in that position so that it is giving and receiving, giving and receiving, giving and receiving, right? We get in that beautiful dance.
Yeah. And it's also about tonality, right? How we do ask for things. And I think in my past, and I may still be like that, I was very like hard and just like, you know, I'm very direct. I'm Swedish, so I'm straight to the point. I don't, you know, I just go for it. And that can be perceived very like bossy and telling people what to do, but it's not. It's just, so I have to be mindful about how I speak too, and how my tonality and all of that. That's a whole lot different. That's
right.
Talk.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And there are times and places for different kinds of tonality, right? So there's a lot of things to learn here. So I want to ask you about your summit in just a moment, because there's a lot to talk about for people, so they can get to it and listen to all the juiciness that's in it. But I guess before we do that, if someone is listening to this conversation and they're sort of in the depths of it, right? They've just been through the divorce, or they've just been through, maybe they got laid off, something, right? Something's happened and they're just starting to realize, wait, there's a different way to do all of this. What would you say are the first few steps to take to start? Because as you said, it's a journey. It's not an overnight process. Mm-hmm. But what's the best place to start for somebody?
I would say ground yourself, which is really, really hard because your mind is going anywhere. Like, how am I going to take care of myself? Like, you going totally like your mind is just going crazy. So the first thing I would say to ground yourself, do self-care. Like, and we need that every day, but just do something for you. And it's not selfish to do self-care. It's what we need. It's a human need. It's what you need to be able to be there for other people. Be able to just ground yourself, take care of yourself, sit and really listen to you, trust yourself. And it sounds so easy. It's not. It's you're in this space. It's really hard, but reach out, ask for help. Mm-hmm. You know, I found Tony Robbins. He's this big guy, right? But through him, I found other people, and we were going all through life transitions. Find like-minded people, because some people that are not going through it, they're not going to have the energy, or they're going to think that you're an energy drain, and you don't want to be that. So find like-minded people. Tons of Facebook group. I just started a Facebook group called Women Reignited, because I'm like, I want to be a safe place where people can come. Reach out to me, like, you know, just talk. The worst thing you can do is lock yourself in your house. You can do it for a day or two.
Right. Kind of get through that piece of it, right?
Yeah. And it's okay to cry and show emotions and don't hold things in, because if you keep things in, you can't, you just need to let it go. And I didn't used to cry. And I think then I started crying. I never cried as much as I've had after, my divorce.
Yeah.
So just a few steps, just take time for you, ground yourself, invite people in to talk to, find people to talk to. Very, very important. Surround yourself with like-minded people. Preferably people that are a little bit ahead of you, so you don't get down in this little mishmash of pity. Oh, poor us, poor us. You don't want that. You want somebody that's going to lift you up.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because I do think we, in this age of the internet where you can find a group for anything, right? It is important to kind of notice, all right, is this a group of people who are in exactly the same place? So all we can do is commiserate, and okay, maybe there's a time and a space for that, but that's going to hold you there. Right? If you can find a group that's like moving, everybody maybe is in different stages, so that you can see what happens when somebody has taken that next step and that maybe 3 steps ahead, right? So you kind of get that path to knowing where you're going.
Yeah. And also like for me, like I'm not saying I have arrived. No.
Well, yeah.
Like I just said, this year I learned certain new things. Every day I get triggered and I learn new things, but I sit with them and letting them, come to me, and I approach them differently. Don't stay. Connect with like-minded, but on a little bit higher level. So you get inspiration too, and know it's okay. And know that it's, I always say this, because people told me this we'll be fine. You will look back at this and it will be the best thing that ever happened to you. And you're like, no, now it's the best thing that ever happened to me.
Yeah, that's, my theory is those are words that you should only say to yourself. Yeah. Right? Like when it's coming from the outside, it's like they're like needles under your skin. Like, really, you don't have a clue. Yeah, no.
It's not helping me right now. What am I going to do with that? Like, I take a day at a time too. And the other thing, which I think is huge, if you can, practice gratefulness, because there's things that, like for me in my marriage, right? There's things that I'm very appreciative in my marriage. I have a beautiful daughter, I get to, live in this country, and there's in a beautiful area. And like, there's so much I learned about me, I learned about, just so much you actually learned from it. Now I ask people, because I'm single, I ask them if they're divorced, what did you learn from your marriage? You did not learn anything from your marriage. Bye.
Right.
Because then you're just going to repeat that again.
Exactly.
And it's not yes, I did. I was not, I take full responsibility for my past and who I became and all of that. But I own it and I learned from it and I'm moving forward. Don't get stuck in the back. Move forward.
And wrapped into that is that sense of trust, right? That you mentioned before. Trust yourself. It's a little hard when you've been knocked down, but there is that part of you that knows.
Yes.
Right, that there's something new.
Yes.
So playing off of this idea of listening to others who maybe have been through things but are just a couple steps ahead, I know you have created this amazing summit of people who are talking about all these different skills that you've been speaking about. So can you share a little bit about what you've put together?
Yes, I'm so excited. And you're on it too, so I'm so
excited. I am.
It's so I have because this is obviously a passion. I want women to feel sexy, empowered, beautiful, and confident. So I put together I handpicked experts such as Jennifer in all kinds of fields. So it's anything from what's stopping us, like limiting beliefs, feminine and masculine energy. I have a relationship expert coming in talking about that. I have self-care, which is huge. I have self-doubts, like self-doubt. We doubt ourselves all the time and it's holding us back. Fear is holding us back. So we talk about all the things that's kind of like the inside work and what is really like, so you really get to know you again and kind of rediscovering you again, and then stepping into the new you. Now, it's not going to take just 11 days because I have 11 speakers now, but it's a start.
Right.
And it's opening up your mind to possibilities. And it's a first step. And the women I have on there are I would say powerhouses. They're fabulous, strong, but we all have something in common. We all have gone through some kind of a transition. So there's a group of people. And even if you think you haven't gone through a transition, we all go through a certain transition. Like you said, divorce. It could be, having a kid and we just don't feel like us again. Or, we're like kind of lost in the workplace and we stepped into that masculine energy. Maybe our relationship is falling apart. And it is basic to reconnect with you again, to find you again. It's the steps I took when I was going through my my path, my future path, so to speak. And their interviews are just like this. It's on Zoom, and you can listen to, or you can watch us. And they're short interviews, 45 minutes at the max, and it's 11 days, and it's free. And,
best of all.
And I know, speaking for myself, I'm very tired of Zoom and all the things that's thrown at us, but this is so needed because people are even coming out of COVID and they're just like scared and fearful now. And they were not like that before. And maybe we gained weight. We all have gained weight. It's just stepping into you again and finding you. It's so, it's a gift.
It is. And again, I said this, what I said earlier was nobody should tell this to you. This has to be something you say to yourself. But I am going to say something here that, all of these hard transitions are gifts. Mm-hmm. They're here in the only way I can make sense out of anything that I've been through, the big things that I've been through is, look, my soul's trying to get my attention.
Yep.
And maybe it was knocking and I just wasn't listening before. So the 2x4 got a little bigger and a little bigger. Right. And if we can stop pushing against where we are and saying that it's awful and terrible, and then step in and say, this is an opportunity. Mm-hmm. Maybe my life is going to look different than I ever thought it was going to look. Maybe I went through an experience that I just never thought. I grew up in a family where money was there was enough of it, but it was very, you saved, you took care of things, but all of this. So for me to have gone through a bankruptcy, it was like almost one of the worst things I could even think of. Right. It was embarrassing to be of my family and have that bankruptcy happen. And at the same time, once I stopped shaming myself, it really turned into a gift.
Yeah.
Right. So
I agree. It's what happens to us. That's why I'm grateful. It shaped me, because I always think, why couldn't this happen to me when I was, 40? But it's like, no, because it's supposed to happen when it's supposed to happen, because then maybe my path would have been differently, or it's just, it is a gift, and that is hard to hear. It is truly a gift. And I also want, people, because what also happens when we stay in this box or we're not living our life, your body starts reacting to it. That's a whole different, I started having panic attacks. Mm-hmm. I was on oxygen for a little bit. It was like my body was just like screaming at me. And then they said stress. I was like, I'm not stressed. I don't understand. Yeah. So mm-hmm. Don't get to that point either. So that's my goal and vision, is for women to just at least open the door.
Beautiful. So, okay. So tell me the link to the summit is in the show notes, but tell me the exact name of the summit and the best way for people to find it and get signed up for it.
Yeah, the best way would be, I know you're sending an email out.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But it's Women Reignited. So it's Woman Reignited. And you have it shown up, you have it's a website, and they can go through your email or through, I think I put my link on there. So either one works. Yeah.
Yep.
And then if they want to find me, I'm on Instagram. My name is Ingela, and that's under Ingela Floral. I think you may have that on there too. That's the best way to. I have the link to the summit there too.
Fantastic. Yep. Okay. So Instagram, through the website, through the show notes, all of that. Yeah. Well, yeah, Ingela, thank you so much for being willing to be here and sharing your experience, sharing your knowledge. I'm really appreciative of having you here.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. This has been so much fun. Thank you. Thank you.
It's very good. All right. So we're going to take a quick break. You're listening to Soul Wisdom Abundance here on Transformation Talk Radio. When we come back, we're going to dive back into this whole topic of self-worth and receiving and doing a little bit more. We'll chat more about it and how to do it. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. Hello, we're back on Soul Wisdom Abundance. I'm your host, Jennifer Bloom. And in the first part of the show, I was talking with Ingela all about self-care and what to do when you've had a big setback and how to move forward and use it as we were really talking about how to use it as a learning experience, to understand that when something really hard happens, that it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity for expansion. That's how I would speak about it. And of course, when you're right in the muck of it, that can be a bit of a challenge. And each step you can take into understanding that where you are is an expansion point, the easier it will become to create more of what you want. And that's really where I want to start the conversation for the second half of the podcast today. Because when we have life going the way that it goes, and then something happens, or we're in a space where we need more money, right? It gives us this opportunity to shift from how we thought the world was working to how it actually works. And where I really want to start is with this idea that we are receivers. We're taught to be makers and doers. Go out, get the thing done, get an education, get a job, make your money, all of that, blah, 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 blah. And there is a lot of action to take on this planet. We're not just going to sit. I'm not telling you just sit on the couch and things will rain from the heavens. But we hold this belief that we ourselves have to make what we want happen. And when we do that, we end up blocking what could come to us in a much easier way. We're literally hardwired to be receivers of divine energy. And again, this is not about religion. This is not about a practice set of religious beliefs. This is more about the fact that you here on the planet are a drop of the ocean that is the divine. And I use the word divine. You can use whatever words you want: universe, God, goddess, nature, whatever your name is for that which is bigger than us. We are a piece of that. We are both here as our human self, and we have a literal connection to divinity. So we are literally divinity walking around getting to know itself better and better and better. Because of that, we have access to all the resources that the divine has for itself. But we have to be in a position where we allow ourselves to be open enough to be able to receive that. When we are in that space of wanting to control and make something happen, to push, all of that stops the flow of universal good, which again is always coming to us. And the more that we know, that universal good is coming to us, the more that we know that we get to be an open receiver, the more that we can allow what we want to show up in our lives. And maybe it shows up in the form of inspiration. Like, for example, right, talking to Ingela, maybe you listen and you said, oh, I want to listen to her. I want to listen to her summit, right? That's a little nugget. You listen to the podcast, you learned about Ingela, and now you're going to listen to her series of speakers. That's one way we receive, right? We happen to be in the quote, right place at the right time. And there's lots of different ways to be open to receiving, which we'll talk about more in a moment. But and again, it's hard when you're in the middle of something that is a challenge to say, oh, I'm a receiver. And here's one of the things that comes up often. In fact, I just was speaking with a client the other day, and she was saying, as we were talking about money, and one of her soul money languages is about the fact that it's called weight carrier. And weight carrier is all about lifting the burden of money, really being able to feel the lightness of money. And her comment to me was, how can I feel the lightness if I don't have the money? Right, so we're getting into this conversation about the fact that money is light regardless of how much you have in the bank. And it really rubbed a sore spot for her, because she said, how do I not just use this as another stick to beat myself up with? If I'm supposed to know all of this information, if I'm this drop of divinity, if divine is always giving to me, but I'm the one who is putting up the stop signs, how do I not just use that as a way to beat myself up more? And it was a really important question to ask, because I think we're all asking that when we get in the space of that beginning to learn internally, right? We're expanding who we are internally. There's that point where you realize the world's a little bit different than you thought it was, and yet you're still kind of blaming yourself. And it is something that I think of as sort of fault versus responsibility. Okay. It's not your fault. For example, this client I was speaking with, it wasn't her fault that she wasn't in the space yet of feeling the lightness of money. She's had lots of experiences, starting from family origin, talking about how hard money was. It's like she was wired to literally believe the opposite. Was that her fault? No, of course not. But then once we start reaching out and learning new things, now it becomes and this is another tough word, and I need to think of another word, because again, this has a lot of connotation to it as well, but it becomes our responsibility to play with something new, to be able to recognize in the moment, wait a minute, I'm going through something, this is really hard, and this is hard, but there's another way for me to see this. There's another way for me to define it. And it isn't about perfectionism. It isn't about getting perfect and having perfect thoughts, and therefore we have this perfect flow from the divine. That's not what human life is all about. Human life is about experiencing something, seeing what we don't want, letting that inform what we do want, and then expanding into a new spot. And then we get into that new spot, and then something happens, we get knocked down again, maybe not as hard this time because we've learned a little bit more, and then, oh, here's another place to expand into. Okay? I see it, it's really a spiral, right? We learn more, and we spiral upwards, and then there's something else, and then we learn more, and up and up and up and up we go. I think for me, when I've been in places that have been really challenging and really tough, the easiest way for me to say, wait, there's something bigger going on, is to really recognize the fact that, and I said this, I think I said this earlier when we're speaking to Ingela, right? This is about my soul getting my attention. And usually when you go through something big, you recognize that there were some signs from before that you just didn't really pay attention to. And now all of a sudden you've got this bigger experience happening. So if you can really view it as this, again, it's an opportunity. It's, you know, the word gift is got a lot of connotations to it as well. But really it's about expanding into more. I think another big part of this in terms of, you know, kind of going to that space of making it your fault is we've been taught to fuel ourselves by highlighting what's wrong with our life. Right? We've been taught to see where we aren't and where we need to be. And then we push against where we are to try to get ourselves to where we want to be. I teach about soul abundance. And soul abundance is all about highlighting who we really are and letting that pull us forward. So instead of being in this really rough spot and, you know, sort of cracking that whip and saying, how did I get here? Why am I here? Why did this happen to me? That was stupid, really hard, right? That mental loop that's going on inside your head and using that as, you know, supposedly fuel to start your fire. It only works for, I mean, it can work, right? We've got free will on the planet. We can do it. But what we find typically, those of us who are looking at creating some expansion and doing things differently, we can't do it anymore. It just isn't working. Okay. So this whole idea of fault versus responsibility then, right, is to release the part that says, hey, this is your fault. And instead move into the space of realizing, hey, I have this connection. I get to be open to receive. I wonder how I can do that. And taking the responsibility for shifting the thoughts, right? So that you can move forward. Then the question becomes, all right, Jennifer, so you want to move forward. How do I do it? How do I do it in a new way? Instead of thrashing myself and pushing myself and saying horrible things to myself, how do I really move forward? And I would say that the very first step, and Ingela almost said this, this was, I think, what she was implying, but the word I would use is surrender. If you're at a stage that you just can't stand, instead of pushing against it, like I said, using all of those horrible words for ourselves, instead of needing something, instead of yearning for something, instead of being just in this state of, I had somebody say the other day, whininess, right? I might even use that word. We want to stop and breathe into it and say, I'm okay exactly where I am. And that can be a little bit scary if you're someplace that you don't want to be. And I'll share my story here in a moment. And yet the very act, if in fact, let's just stop for a moment. I'm going to ask you to close your eyes and take a breath for me. And if you're not exactly in a space where you're pushing against something or where you're really having a hard time, imagine when you were there. And if you are there, just let yourself be in it for a moment. And picture yourself in that situation, and picture yourself saying all those horrible things that you say to yourself. I should be someplace different. This is ridiculous. I know better. Why didn't I see it coming? Why am I experiencing this? It's just not fair. There's all these other people on the planet and they're awful people, or they seem to be awful people and they're not going through it, right? Whatever it is that you say to yourself. And notice how that feels in your body. Notice the tension that's present. Notice even just sort of that feeling of, it's almost like being a boxer. That's the image I have. You got your fists up, you know, you're ready to swing at anybody who's going to tell you that you're doing something wrong. But also bring your attention to the center of your chest. How's your heart? Is it open or closed? Typically, when we get in this space of we are closed down. It's like, it's not even just your heart, it's your entire being. It's just closed with all of this armor. Now, imagine that you take a breath and you just let it all go. So you say things to yourself like, I am where I am. It's not where I thought I'd be, but I'm here. I'm okay. I'm breathing. I'm safe. I may not know exactly where I need to be going yet, but here I am. It's okay. I'm all right. I'm safe. Right? Same words, kind of let them repeat, and notice what it does to that armor. Notice what it does to that feeling of tension and that boxer position, right? For me, I feel like my hands come down. I'm resting. I'm open. When you do that, you are in the position, literally, energetically, and physically, to receive from the divine. You are able to hear your intuition. You're able to hear your inspiration. And you are literally showing the universe what you want more of. Remember, we live in an attraction-based universe. We don't say no to anything. Wherever we're focused, we get more of. So when we're in that fighting stance, you're going to get more of that. And you're just going to suffer and suffer and suffer. And we can choose to do that. And I will raise my hand. I've been there. I will be there again. I probably will. Hopefully for not as long. Okay. So the very first step, when you want to step back into the receiving, when you are in a space of difficulty, is to surrender. The next step, I would say, is to think of an activity or a place you like to be that allows this really expanded state of being, or this really, you can think, I call it expanded. You can think of it as softer, right? This non-resistant, hands down, open-hearted. Where do you feel safest, and where do you feel like you can be this the most of the time? For me, that's being out by water, or even just being in nature, taking a walk, being outside. If I can get outside and I can get moving, it's a lot easier to drop all of that resistance. So it might be for you, it might be, do you enjoy art? Do you like going through an art museum? Do you like to knit or crochet or do something with your hands? Are you a crafter? Are you a painter? Are you somebody that throws pots? I always wanted to do that. That's not a skill of mine. Are you somebody who enjoys a really good book? Find whatever it is that lets you be in this softer, more open space, and then do it as much as you can. And I mean as much as you can. And if that is only 15 minutes a day because you're really busy, that's fine. If you can afford to take a half a day, or you can come home after work and do that, or you can take time out of the middle of your day, that's what I did. Right? When I was going through that time of bankruptcy, when I've gone through a couple of different other sort of pinch points, I spend hours walking the riverbanks. I live in Minnesota. I do it in the winter. I do it in the summer. It doesn't matter. I have to be out in it. And when I do that, I can be in that really beautiful expanded state. And then the final step, at least for the purposes of today's conversation, is to start to get really curious. And here's the question I want you to ask yourself. Why do I have what I have? So instead of asking, why don't I have what I want, ask the question, why do I have what I have? Begin to become aware of kind of what beliefs drew you to this point, what experiences, thoughts, memories, whatever it was, created the you of that moment. So for example, let me tell you a little bit about my experience. So 2009, went through a bankruptcy, and it was absolutely the best thing to have ever happened to me. Became a really good teacher of mine. But I can see how that situation was created. My husband worked for a company that was routinely laying people off, and it was always around Christmas. It's so awful. And every year that he was working for them and the layoffs happened, I got panicked. We just had our third child. I was starting a business, and I was worried. I remember laying in bed thinking about it and worrying about it. And it wasn't even so much that I was having those thoughts, but what was coming out of it, those thoughts were coming out of this not enough space. I just had this really limited view of the world, that the only way that I could receive was through my hard work, through my husband's hard work. And if we couldn't receive through those two ways, things were going to fall apart. All of that tumbled and tumbled and tumbled and resulted in the series of layoffs that my husband did end up going through, ended up with some business things, which then led to the bankruptcy. Complete and total measurement. My self-worth was in the tank. And you all have probably heard the other side of that story about the business side, but the belief side, that was a piece of it. Okay. And so what you want to do then is begin to start to look at what beliefs are serving you and which ones no longer match what you know to be true. So when you're in that space of not having what you want, you've been knocked flat, or you've been trying to get something forever and it's just not working, right? You want to work with the principles of receiving. And to do that, you want to surrender. You want to go into a place of expansion and ask, why do I have what I have? And sometimes that takes a little bit of outside help. If that's something that you would like some more of, you can reach out to me. I'm more than happy to share how that can happen. But those are the steps. Taking responsibility and allowing yourself to be open to receive. It's really, really, really deep self-care. That's what we're talking about here. Right? There's a lot of self-care that's external, like taking a really nice bath and candlelights and good food, and that's all good too. But this is really deep self-care. And that deep self-care is what's going to allow you to be able to receive in a brand new way. Now, I know this is a big topic, and so this is going to be the focus of next 2 weeks podcast. So please come back and we will dive even deeper into it. I want to thank each and every one of you for being here and listening in and tuning into Soul Wisdom Abundance. I'm Jennifer Bloom, and I'm here to help awaken and heal your money relationship. That's the work that I'm doing here on the planet. We're here the first and third Fridays of every month. And if you want to find me in other places, you can find me on Instagram at soul.abundance and same thing on Facebook. So everyone, again, I'm delighted that we've been able to spend this hour together. And until we meet again, I offer each and every one of you prosperous blessings. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to Soul Wisdom Abundance with Jennifer Bloom, creating wealth from spiritual health on transformationtalkradio.com. To learn more about Jennifer Bloom or listen to past shows, visit jenniferbloom.com. You can subscribe to this podcast on any of your favorite podcasting outlets. Simply search Soul Wisdom Abundance with Jennifer Bloom.